Hello, welcome back to another video. It's Boxing Podcast episode number 9. Today we've got a very special guest, our first guest from stateside. He's a contributor to We Like Sports and he does the Jam Serhan Boxing Hour over at Boxing Media Hub. It's Serhan Dayi. How are we, Serhan? You well?
Yes, how about yourself?
Yeah, really well. Thank you very much for coming on. Perfect guest for this week because the fights we're going to be reviewing were all stateside. So, yeah, very, very happy and excited to have you on, and we'll kick straight into it. First fight we look at Teofimo Lopez against Steve Claggett. Fairly one-sided fight. Serhan for Lopez. He won 12 rounds to 0 on 2 cards and 11-1, I think, on the third card. It looked like it was set up for Teofimo to get a good performance against Steve Claggett. Potentially get a knockout back on. He's been fairly lackluster, should we say? He had a good performance against Josh Taylor. The Ortiz fight, his last one out before Claggett, was fairly controversial. A lot of people were saying as well. What were your thoughts on Lopez Claggett?
Well, for someone who did a lot of talking in regards to Terrence Crawford as he did before the fight, I thought this was a real good opportunity for him to make a statement, and I didn't think he did. I thought this was one of those fights where I thought he should have been able to get the guy out of there, especially in lieu of all the things he said in the build-up for calling out Terrence Crawford. Claggett's a very gritty guy who survived, but I'll say for a guy who pitched a near shutout like Teofimo Lopez did, he got beat up a little bit.
Yeah, Claggett kind of had that style, didn't he? Volume puncher, heavy volume, came forward. It's not like Lopez had to go looking for him or anything like that. He was there for him to hit. One thing I've observed, and it was doing the rounds on X when the fight was on, looks like Teofimo's lacking a bit of pop at 140 pounds. We saw what he did to Richard Comey, and his pop at 135 pounds. You look like a monster puncher, but that doesn't seem to be there, does it? At the 140 pounds for him.
I think it's a two-part process. The first part is you're correct. I don't think he had the pop he had 135, because I remember you point out the Comey fight where he basically just put him out. He really had the pop. Second part of his the guys he's fighting are bigger. It's going to take a little more effort for him to put the appropriate effort into the punch to get a knockout if he needed it. And I do agree with you. I think this is a fight he probably should have been able to get one of those knockouts as a way to, make him make a statement for himself. But the starch, something was missing that night. He did get the win. He won every round legitimately. But I said something was missing of the guy. Maybe it was, as you said, the lack of the punch that he had.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in his post-fight, he was talking about moving up to 147 pounds. Now, I don't like that move personally for Teo right now. I don't think it's the play. He probably is now going to be looking at unifications, I would say, at 140 pounds. Are there any fights you'd want to see next for Teo, Serhan, or what direction do you think he should be looking to move now?
Well, he's mentioning 147. The name was thrown out there was Brian Norman, which I don't think he'll beat Brian Norman. I think he should stay at 140. Fight of a couple champions. Maybe someone like a Tank Davis can move up, or eventually maybe a Shakur Stevenson can move up. We can get fights there. Some of the guys there he can probably handle them because the division's sort of flattened a little bit.
It has.
But maybe guys like a Teo or a Shakur can move. A Tank or a Shakur can move up and fight him for a bigger payday and something that could excite the fans a little bit in that weight class.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, with Haney now being champion in recess, he probably was the name at 140 pounds. Liam Paro's just beat Sabriel Matias. He's champion, and Isaac Cruz, I think he's fighting on the Crawford Madrimov card on August the 3rd. So, I guess if he's going to do unification, it could be Liam Paro. But, again, like you say, it's probably not a big money fight. And I'm assuming that's, he's going to be looking at a bigger fight. So, yeah, potential Tank's fought at 140 pounds before, hasn't he? So that's yes. Probably not too far fetched. I'd say Tank would probably fancy that matchup.
You mentioned I wouldn't mind a fight with Puro because I was impressed with what he did to Matias in Puerto Rico a couple of weeks ago. He's a hell of a fighter, but they said he doesn't have the namesake or the draw that you said a Tank or Shakur would have for Teo. I do like Puro a lot. I was impressed with what he did with Matias a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
sure. He's a very, very solid fighter. Some good fighters coming out of Australia right now. And I think he would give Teo nightmares. Yes. I really do. I think that's a tough matchup completely for Teofimo. So, we'll see what's next for Lopez then. And obviously credit Steve Claggett. He gutted out 12 tough rounds then. He's a very, very tough man. So maybe I'm being a little bit hard on Teofimo there because, Steve Claggett had only been stopped once in 7 defeats before that, I think. So, the guy's tough.
I don't think you're being hard. It's just because he went on this podcast talking about winning Terrence Crawford, winning this guy, winning that guy. If you're going to talk all that, and you better come out here and give one of those kind of performances where you're going to get the casual fan to open their eye and say, wow, I want to see it. Yeah. He didn't do that.
Yeah, I thought the matchup was made for that reason as well. So absolutely. But we'll move to Phoenix now. We're not going to complain about this one. I can tell you that for free. We'll start with the one of the fights of the year, arguably the fight of the year, probably. Bam Rodriguez up to super flyweight, fighting Juan Francisco Estrada. His first fight since the back end of 2022. He'd been out for a while. It promised to be, one of the fights of the year. It was billed as that. A lot of the time we get that and we get stalemates, but we just knew that something was going to be cooking with this one. Bam Rodriguez stung Gaio Estrada in the third round. He dropped him in the fourth. Unbelievably, right on the back foot, Gaio dropped Bam Rodriguez in the fifth, albeit a flash knockdown, it has to be said, but nevertheless, Bam was on the floor and we had a fight breaking out. And the finish was just left to the body that, you could just see the lights just shut down on Juan Francisco Estrada. And it was a phenomenal fight. Great finish by Bam Rodriguez. Give me your thoughts on what happened there.
Fight of the year. And you said the body shot that knocked him out, probably the finish of the year. You don't see body shots that just cripple you down like that, the way that happened that night. A star has been born. His name is Jesse Bam Rodriguez.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw obviously the fight with Sonny Edwards at the back end of last year. It was a great performance. Sonny's a good boxer, but maybe not as big a name, especially stateside as Juan Francisco Estrada. We've seen the fights he's had with Chocolatito et al. During his career. He'd never been stopped before. But what I love about watching Bam Rodriguez, the footwork he's got, he's so clever with his work as well. Similar to, the likes of Naoya Inoue, he's always there for the finish. He's not going to try and outpoint you, Bam. He's going to go for the finish every single time he fights, and he's so fan friendly. He's great to watch.
Exactly. I had images of Inoue when I saw this. It was one of the better fights you've seen, especially those guys south of of the featherweight division where you don't see much hub, these days aside of Inoue. Now we have a second guy here in Bam Rodriguez who's I said his star is just glowing right now. For him to do it against a proven guy like Estrada, who this fight is basically a toss-up to the predictors who would win. For him to do that rather convincingly to a veteran of Estrada's caliber, very, 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 very impressive. Yeah, and he's thrusted in the pound for pound rankings. You got to put him up there now.
Yeah, he has to be. He has to be in the conversation for top 5 right now for me. Absolutely. There was something controversial, Serhan, with I've got the cards wrote down here. Give me your thoughts on this because I'll give my thoughts on it afterwards. One judge had it 57-56 to Gaio. One had it 58-54 to Bam, and the third had it 56-56 a draw. So essentially, before Bam stopped Estrada, the fight was in the balance. It certainly didn't look like that to me when I was watching it. But what did you think?
It's amazing to me how we look at all these judges and how they have their own view of the fight. And I agree. I thought, because remember, he scored 2 knockdowns being banned before the knockout. Yeah. And I know Estrada got the flash knockdown. So basically, how are you going to give it from that? And even the other rounds, I thought, even though rounds were close, I thought Bam was winning them rather decisively for the end. It's the same thing we had to talk about year to year, fight after fight after fight. Always, these officials always have their own mindset and want to be whatever the hell they're thinking. You just want to ask yourself what's going on, because someone actually posted the scorecards and some of the rounds they were given to Estrada. I think one of them was like one of the rounds. One judge gave to Estrada a round in which Bam floored him. That's something I can't even comprehend.
Yeah, it's because obviously there was a 10-8 in there in the fifth for Estrada, but it was evident that Bam Rodriguez was dominating the fight. It stung him badly in the third. Dropped him in the fourth, which is obviously a 10-8. The draw for me is a bad card, but the card having Gaio Estrada ahead after being beat up essentially for he was in the fight. He was doing everything he can, but he was not winning that fight. I don't care who you are, but especially a a paid boxing judge. You know, you should be able to have a better view of the fight than that. And again, you know, we're talking about one of the fights of the year here. And again, we're coming to talking about the scorecards in boxing. You know, it's a serious problem.
Well, probably the best thing that happened was it ended in a knockout, because otherwise there'll be all kinds of craziness all over the place. You see, we've seen it ourselves, you know, because I know the guys I talked to over in your country have the same problem with some of the scorecards when you guys have fights over there. I remember the first to bring up the first Taylor Control fight where there was fireworks all over the place. We have the same thing here for year after year, decade after decade.
Yeah, for sure. It's a universal problem. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. That it seems to be every 3 or 4 months. You know, and like you said, it won't be mentioned really because Bam stopped Estrada. However, if that went 12 rounds and then in the end, you know, it was fairly competitive for the last 6 rounds, and you know, Estrada, it ends in a draw, because right now where the judges' cards were at when the fight was stopped, it was a draw. You know, if that would have happened, it would have caused all sorts of controversy. So it's probably going to be brushed under the carpet because Bam got the stoppage, so it was irrelevant in the end. But again, you know, really not good. So there's a rematch clause. In the ring, Guy Estrada said that he knows what he needs to do and he's going to take it. My personal view on it is I would probably like to see him retire. I do not want to see him get another career beating off Bam Rodriguez, because Bam's he's 24 years old. He's only going to keep improving, getting better, you know, growing into the weight more, so on and so forth. Estrada's only going to keep getting older. For me, it's just going to be a one-side domination in a rematch. I understand Estrada's point of view. He's going to get a hell of a payday. And who am I to say don't take it? But, you know, what would your thoughts be on a potential rematch?
Same thing you just said. He's going to do the same thing again. I mean, he outside of the flash knockdown, Bam basically won every round. And I like Estrada. He's a cagey guy, prideful fighter who gives an honest effort. But in the rematch, it's going to be the same thing. Maybe a little earlier this time, and more where you know, everything is put to bed. Yeah,
exactly. The gap is only going to keep getting further. You know, Estrada's going to keep getting older. Bam's going to keep coming into his prime more and more and more. So, lastly, before we move on from it, the link that seems to be all over the internet, and even DAZN were pushing it quite a lot on Saturday night as well. This Bam Rodriguez and Nahoya Inoue link. Now, from what I've seen and been reading, Inoue is going to be fighting TJ Doheny in September. You know, there was rumors of him being on the Wembley card, but didn't come to fruition. Then he's going to be fighting Sam Goodman, who's his mandatory. I think it's his IBF title mandatory. And then I believe next year he's going to be moving up to 126 pounds and featherweight. You know, ultimately Bam's 115 pounder at super flyweight. Inoue's 31 years old. Bam's 24. I don't believe that their paths are going to cross currently, unless Bam Rodriguez gets a boatload of money. Maybe Turki Al-Sheikh gets involved in Saudi Arabia. You know, I just don't personally see how that fight comes to fruition. You know, what do you think?
I don't see it happening anytime soon. As you said, Inoue's going to probably go up to 26. I can't. Bam's at 115.
Yeah,
the weight for fighters in those weight classes is bigger on the human body than you think.
Of course, 3 pounds is a lot. So obviously, you know, he's to get to 118. Bam's next move would be to bantamweight and then super bantamweight, where Inoue's campaigning now. But we know Inoue's going up to 126 next year anyway. So, you know, it's going to be 4 or 5 years away, in my opinion, before Bam's up to there. And Inoue's going to be, you know, like you're saying, the lighter weights, you know, Inoue's probably going to be out of town by 35, 36, like most, you know, bantamweight, super bantamweight, you know, body frames are. So yeah, I just don't see it personally, but I understand the comparisons and it's a fantasy matchup, isn't it?
Yes, I think it'd be a heck of a. If there's some way they can get that weight and everything situated, it would be a hell of a draw. I'll tell you that much, because Bam just won a lot of fans over the weekend with this performance, and you know the draw in a way is not just in his home country, Japan, but worldwide.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It'd be absolutely phenomenal, because I think you can draw a lot of comparisons in their styles too, for sure. So we'll quickly move on to very quickly Sonny Edwards against Adrian Curiel. It was stopped on a bad cut, in fairness to Sonny Edwards. His first fight since losing to the main event, Bam Rodriguez, in a great fight last time out. Curiel had been fighting at light fly. He rematched Nonsinger. Obviously, he had that KO of the year on him in the first fight in Monaco on the Matchroom show. But fairly easy work for Sonny Edwards. You know, he's a good boxer. You know, he's well known in Arizona after the Bam fight. He was cheered into the ring, but he was booed out. But Unfortunately, he doesn't have the most fan-friendly style, but he really is a good boxer.
I don't understand the booing, to be quite honest. I mean, I get this because of all the showboating, but I mean, the guy put on a heck of a performance, and that guy's going to be probably sitting out for the rest of the year, at least, because that was a nasty cut he took right here in the eye. I don't know how he could see out of that.
It was a bad one. Yeah, the fight was rightfully stopped. He's probably going to be coming back to the UK. He's done back-to-back fights in Phoenix now. But Eddie Hearn is trying to line up a WBC flyweight championship with him and Galal Yafai, who's brother of Cal Yafai, who's world champion not so long ago. I think he's now retired. But that should be a good fight, actually. I don't know if you've seen much of Galal Yafai, but he's a good fighter.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen some of the video highlights and some of the film study. It's a good fighter, and it's actually a decent matchup both ways here. I think it'd be a good one for Sonny to get himself really back in the win column. It was a good win Saturday, but it's carried on from there, especially after that tough loss to Bam. And one last thing I should add this here. I saw after the fight where Sonny Edwards congratulated Bam Rodriguez on his championship win. Brilliant. That's one of the things I like to see in the sport.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was fantastic. He went up to the whole team, and I think the quote was, "It's better watching you than being in the ring with you," which is
right. Yeah. I think he knows firsthand.
yeah. And credit to Sonny because he took an absolute pasting from Bam in that fight, but he never went anywhere all night. He was great in that. Just wrapping up then, Sam. I'm gonna just cover a bit of big news we had. Well, it was over in the UK, but it's major worldwide boxing news. So the Riyadh season card was announced on the 21st of September. It's Anthony Joshua challenging Daniel Dubois. He was made full IBF heavyweight champion in the week. Alexander Usyk vacated. I've given my thoughts on that in a different video. I believe Usyk is the only heavyweight champion, but anyway, it's not Daniel Dubois' fault. It's more boxing politics, but we won't discuss that too much. An amazing undercard. What are your thoughts? I'll go to you on AJ Dubois first, and maybe we'll cover a couple of the other fights afterwards.
Well, after Dubois beat Hrgović and the political aspect that took place with the belt, this fight made too much sense for it not to be made. Because I was on because even Jam asked me if I thought it was going to be made. I said it would because it just made too much sense over there in the UK. Both guys are big draws. I heard they sold out close to 90,000 already over at Wembley.
Yeah. They're going for a record attendance, which would be 100,000. I think they need to apply now to one of the local London councils in order to get the exemption. But yeah, it's they could have sold Wembley out themselves, AJ and Dubois. My thoughts on it are, because I've interacted with a lot of UK fight fans since it was announced that AJ was going to fight Dubois. And the common thing I'm hearing is Hrgović was hitting Dubois with a right hand at will. That seems to be the popular thing to say. I do think AJ stops Dubois. I don't think it's as easy as people are just saying, Hrgović hit him loads of times before Dubois adjusted. Daniel Dubois and Don Charles, his trainer, and Kieran Fowler, his other trainer, they're going to have a better game plan than just to let Anthony Joshua hit him with the right hand all night. But I do think Joshua will stop him late. But I think Daniel Dubois is definitely a factor in this fight.
He's come out very well the last few fights. He's got I want to say it was Joyce he beat not too long ago, Joe Joyce. I know he beat Hrgović in his last fight. And I was very impressed with the Hrgović fight.
Very good performance.
And then the loss to Usyk, I know the low blow, whatever. I thought he held his own very, very respectfully against probably the premier heavyweight in the world. But I agree with you. I think they say there's levels to this. I think AJ's going to show it. I know AJ sort of gotten here a little bit after the losses to Usyk, but he's still, to me, of all the British heavyweights up there, he's number one in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So, he lost to Joe Joyce. He took a knee, he had a broken orbital, I think it was, Dubois in that one. And then he beat Big Baby Jarrell Miller on the Saudi card. Which one? I think it was Fury Ngannou. It was AJ Ngannou, should I say, earlier this year. AJ Ngannou, yes. And then obviously, he just beat Filip Hrgović. Hrgović was touted as the next champion. He was the boogeyman of the division. So, obviously, it's very easy to say, Hrgović was never that good after Dubois stopped him. But that was a very good win. Dubois was sort of plus 200 in that fight. No one really gave him a hope.
Well, the thing is, I thought maybe the problem I think with Hrgović in that fight was he got too fixated with that the governing body, the mandatory, that I think he lost focus. But All credit to Daniel Dubois. I thought he took advantage of the opportunity and really showed himself quite well, to get to this fight against AJ, which I think he legitimately deserves it. I think it's going to be a legit good heavyweight fight for as long as it can be. I just think, as I said, as you and I agree on, I think the skill level is going to be too much on the side of Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, for sure. I believe Dubois definitely is a factor, though, so I think it's going to be competitive. The other fights on the card, I'll run through them. You can tell me which one you're looking forward to most, and I'll exchange that back to you. So Liam Smith against Josh Kelly, Willie Hutchinson against Joshua Buatsi, Tyler Denny against Hamza Shiraz, Anthony Kakachi against Josh Warrington, and Chamberlain Padley, I think, is going to open the main card.
I know there's been a lot of buzz about Buatsi Hutchinson for a while. I think they had some kind of intense stare-off not too long ago.
Yeah, so they had a run-in, and Buatsi actually ended up grabbing Hutchinson by the neck.
I saw that. Yeah, I see a little bit of footage of Buatsi. I like what I see. I think this one's going to be a good one. I've always been a fan of Liam Smith. He always gives an honest effort. Kelly's not a pushover either. What I'm sort of interested in is that Kasache against Josh Warrington. For the longest time, I try to be a fan of Josh Warrington, but sometimes he's a little out there, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
And I want to see what this Kasache can do here, because Warrington is, for all the things you say, he's not going to be a pushover. I think Kasache might be able to pull this one out. But that's what I'm going to look forward to.
Yeah, for me, the pick of the fights is definitely Kakachi against Josh Warrington. Anthony Kakachi had been very unlucky for a lot of his career, been struck with injuries. He's 35 years old, and he got his big opportunity against Joe Cordina. Nobody gave him a hope, and we know what happened there. He went and stopped Joe Cordina. There's talk about him hitting on the brake, whatever happened there. Ultimately, the result was he stopped Joe Cordina. He got his chance and he took it. Josh Warrington's been linked to Lee Wood for a long time. They couldn't get that rematch together, I heard, because Lee Wood was offered less money for the rematch than he was for the first fight. So I believe that was the reason getting in the way. So they put that fight together late. Warrington up at super featherweight now. It was, it's a controversy because he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and he's walking into an IBO and IBF super featherweight championship fight here. So I understand the kind of backlash around that. However, the guy can sell tickets in his sleep. He can bring 20,000 easily up to Wembley from Leeds. So it makes sense from a organization point of view for Matchroom and Queensbury and people like that. So that will be a good fight. Regardless of what happens, that will be great. Josh Kelly against Liam Smith is a really good fight too. Josh Kelly up at 160 pounds now. He's been fighting, Calla Sauerland promotes him now at Wasserman. He's been fighting on, Channel 5, which is a lower network in the UK compared to Sky and DAZN for boxing. But he's worked his way up to number 1, I think, in 2 governing bodies. And Liam Smith, obviously, he was injured into the Chris Eubank Jr. rematch. We all know that. I think he was in a position where he had to take it for the financial gain, which I understand. But he's like you say, always gives an honest performance. He's going to be no pushover for Josh Kelly. We saw David Avanesian knock Josh Kelly out in his only defeat. So Liam Smith definitely a factor in that fight. It should be a good one.
And you mentioned Tyler Denny. He came off a very nice win over Felix Cash. Correct. And his quality of wins has gotten better and better. And one of the more real intriguing stories I've read about this a fighter in quite some time, a guy that was once a plumber, now in the game. He's, as I told GM the other day, he's trending upward, and his resume's gotten better and better with each passing fight. I really like this guy. I really like that guy.
Yeah, he's a great story, Sam. So he's been fighting really on like a lot of small hall shows in the UK. Probably in front of a couple of hundred people. One of the most honest, hardworking, nice guys that you come across in boxing. He fought for the European title a couple of fights ago, won that. Then obviously defended it against Felix Cash the other week, which he was a big underdog in that. And, there's rumors of Hamza Shiraz versus Chris Eubank Jr. for a while. That didn't come to fruition. I believe that the Denny fight came together late, obviously after him beating Felix Cash. And, what a story. He's going to be a heavy underdog against Hamza Shiraz. He's a real talent. And, that jab is just unbelievable that he has, like a piston. But, credit to him for taking the fight. And, he's got nothing to lose. He's going to get an absolutely monster payday for fighting. He's fighting at Wembley Stadium, which is a dream for, any English fighter. You're on an Anthony Joshua undercard. So, from fighting in front of a couple of hundred people, probably 3 or 4 fights ago to, 80, 90, 100,000, whatever the attendance will be at Wembley Stadium is absolutely phenomenal. So all credit to Tyler Denny.
Yeah, actually, that jab against Felix Cash was impressive. And you talk about Wembley Stadium. There was a time when you when you went to Wembley Stadium, they packed the house, and when you fought there, you were in the big leagues. I mean, I go back. I could go a little back to guys when Lennox Lewis, Frank Bruno, and Nigel Benn used to fight there. They used to sell that stadium just like that. And with this Adrian Dubois card, it seemed like they're doing it again.
Yep, absolutely. So you just don't know, Shiraz will be a big favorite, but, with fighters, especially when they have nothing to lose, he'll be completely wrote off. He has a free hit. If he gets knocked out by Shiraz, then everyone thought he was going to. That's a dangerous fighter that he's going to be in there. And we've seen it many a time before. Kakachi against Joe Cordina was a prime example. You get one shot. If you get it, then you're going to be on to big and huge paydays. So really look forward to that September 21st Wembley card. That should probably wrap it up, Sam. We've got some good Shakur's back this weekend. I think there's a good card at Prudential in New Jersey. I think Shaki Foster is fighting on that card too. Yeah, we'll look forward to that one. UK wide, we have Johnny Fisher against Alan Babich, which should probably last about a round and a half, and it'll probably be pure chaos. So look forward to those. And massive thanks for coming on, Sam. It was a pleasure to review the fights with you, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. Take care.